Thanks very much, Sophie and everyone, for organizing the event and inviting me here. It is a pleasure to be with you all on the last web lunch before summer break. I'm going to be talking to you today about hiring. And as Sophie said, the special sauce to hiring really great product managers. And in my mind, that special sauce is something different than what we probably have leaned on or thought of in the past, and what we should look at and the skills we should consider when hiring product people. What I'm going to be sharing with you today comes from a book that I published through Sense and Respond Press at the end of last year called Hiring Product Managers Using Product EQ to Go Beyond Culture and Skills. And as we talk about, product EQ really is that secret sauce to finding great product managers and being a great product manager as well. So today I'm going to talk to you about 3 steps to change how you think about hiring. The book itself, I'll tell you right off the bat, is not going to give you like a 5-step process to hire product people, but it will introduce some new tools and ideas on how you can approach hiring and think of it in a very different way that can create some good change personally at a team level and an organization level. So to give you a little more context as to where these recommendations are coming from, as Sophie mentioned, over the last 10 years, I've been an independent product consultant and org design coach and consultant as well, working with organizations, product organizations all over the world. It's been a great opportunity year after year. And one of the things that I really take away from that work and from my time is that product management is very much a practice. Kind of like how a doctor practices medicine or a lawyer practices law. We in product management have this great virtual toolbox of tools and techniques and frameworks and methodologies that we pick from to try to solve some really complex problems. And sometimes what we do works and sometimes it doesn't, but no matter what, it takes a lot of practice. And when I think about product management as a practice, I think of it being really made of 2 dimensions: technical skills, which is what we do, and human skills, which is how we do the work. So to give you a little more context around technical skills and human skills and how I think of those. So technical skills, as I mentioned, what work is done. So we use these great tools and frameworks that we all know and love to do things like create product roadmaps, to build out vision statements and strategy frameworks, to, of course, do OKRs and KPIs, to do things like design sprints and produce prototypes, testing, A/B multivariate testing, interviewing with customers, building out MVPs. These are just a sample of things we do, as you guys know. But then on the other side of the product practice is how we do the work. These are the human skills that I think are just as important as our technical skills. So things like the ability to influence our stakeholders, our managers, members of our team, leadership capabilities, adaptability, the ability to learn quickly as we go along and always want to be learning, the ability to deal with conflict, because we always know there's going to be some kind of conflict going on with whatever we're doing, and to have emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence itself has various definitions, but I think of it as 4 main components. So self-awareness, self-management, relationship management, and social awareness. So when you think of product practice, having these 2 dimensions, the technical side and the human side, you realize that no matter what we do, what technical skill it is, there's going to be a human skill attached to it. They are really interconnected. If you want to build out a roadmap and successfully take that through its process to a place where you can actually work from it as an organization, you need human skills. You need to have things like self-awareness, where if you need to, you can raise your hand and say like, all right, so maybe the thing I'm pushing for on this roadmap is out of my own best interest and not the best interest of my team or my product or the organization. You need to have those influencing skills to bring along the challenging stakeholders and to bring along your team members as well with your vision for this roadmap. And you definitely need to have conflict resolution skills, because we always know there's going to be some kind of tension when it comes to putting together a roadmap. So the thing is, well, I think it's great for me to say this, and it's great for me to think this and write a book about it. But when I look around at the product world that we're living in our community, what I see us talking about a lot is our technical skills, right? We talk about OKRs, we talk about roadmaps, we talk about MVPs and design sprints and testing and all of these things that, again, are essential, but they're not everything when it comes to the product practice. So the work that I do is really trying to help individuals and teams and organizations to really build a balanced product practice where we're putting just as much effort and focus on technical skills as we are human skills. And it's, often easier said than done. So one of the areas that I've really tried to focus on and making this transition from perhaps being over-indexed or over-focused on technical skills to getting this balance is in hiring. From what I've seen in my experience with product organizations, hiring has really kind of trickled down to be a very team level effort and initiative. We are involved at a product management level and above. We're involved in hiring in many ways, which perhaps we wouldn't have been in the past. And what I often see with hiring is that we have very traditional and kind of outdated ways of approaching hiring. And we often don't make great hiring decisions, especially about the skills that we need in our product people and how to really identify those and bring them on board. Instead, we often are finding ourselves making some bad decisions when it comes to hiring. And hiring mistakes overall are expensive. And these numbers aren't just for product, but they kind of help set the scene for what goes wrong and how costly it can be when we make poor hiring decisions. So for example, turnover costs. So when somebody leaves, the cost can range from 120 to 200% of that person's annual salary to replace them. It takes on average about 13 months to get somebody new in to replace that person who's left and get this new person up to a really kind of a point of maximum efficiency. That's quite a long time, especially for a lot of smaller startup organizations that maybe don't even have a 13-month roadmap. Runway ahead of them. Also, I thought this was especially interesting. Employees, when they do leave, only 11% of them say it's because they lack technical skills, and their managers verify this. The vast majority of people are leaving positions, they're leaving companies because they're missing some essential human skill. Maybe it's the ability to give or take feedback. Maybe it's that ability to be able to work with those really challenging stakeholders. But we're missing out on a prime opportunity to focus on human skills and actually hire for them. So now I'll get into kind of the three things you can do to hire for human skills. And the first one is to build a role that matters. You guys are probably very familiar with a job description that looks something like this. This is an actual job description that I found when I was doing research for my book. And it has, just like most of them do, must-haves at the top and nice-to-haves at the bottom. And when you read enough of these job descriptions, you realize the must-haves are the technical skills for the most part. Nice-to-haves are the human skills. When you look at something like this, you realize as well that for a role, this is an e-commerce product manager, we're often kind of building up the expectations of what this role really, or what this person that's coming in to take this role really must have in order to be successful, right? So for example, in this one, it says you must have proven work experience in B2C product management. You must have a proven track record of managing all aspects of a product life cycle and doing so successfully. You must have the proven ability to develop marketing and product strategies and communicate it to the executives. And it would be great to have a solid technical background too. So I don't know about you guys, but when I see something for probably what's considered a pretty mid-level position, that I must have proven ability to do all of these things before I consider applying and coming in for an interview, I find that a bit overwhelming. And it actually also tells me something about the organization itself. Perhaps this organization isn't one where I'd have the opportunity to come in and learn and grow, but something that I must come in and be like ready to go, proven experience in all of these areas from day one. And it's interesting because I remember when I was working at Yahoo and working at Moo, and when I put together job descriptions, for new roles. I was always so excited because that meant I could bring somebody in who could do the things I don't want to do anymore, and they could do, and I could move on and do new things. And I'd go look at like Amazon job descriptions or Google job descriptions, and I do a lot of copying and pasting, and it would end up something like this. And come to find out when doing research that I wasn't alone. About 80% of us, or 80% of hiring managers, think that job descriptions are really important. About 50% of us cut and paste them. So we don't give them a lot of thought, and we do end up with things like this one, where we're probably creating an expectation for a product manager that most people will not be able to meet. And when we go into the nice to haves, it's interesting as well, because this is how I know we cut and paste job descriptions, because of this first line, comfortable with ambiguity. I would say at least 7 out of 10 of all product management job descriptions start with this, comfortable with ambiguity, remaining unfazed when doing things that you've never done before. But this one I thought was extra special because it goes on to say they're also looking for a natural born leader. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't know a lot of people, especially at an e-commerce product management level, who are just, out of the womb, ready to lead. No coaching, no training, no further education, just ready to go. And then this job description goes on to say, we'd really like it if you're anti-fragile as well, and a self-starter, and into detail. So again, when I look at most job descriptions, and this is pretty much stereotypical, it feels like what we're looking for, what we're building up, is saying that we're looking for a unicorn. It's something that just doesn't exist out there. So instead of doing this cutting and pasting, and instead of trying to kind of go after this kind of fantasy or idea of a candidate, I encourage organizations that I work with to use something called the role canvas. And the role canvas is based on 4 seemingly simple questions. What's the purpose of the role? So why does the role exist? So this goes beyond just the job title, right? To what is the role's actual reason for being? What are the accountabilities of the role? So what are the goals or the outcomes this role will be working towards? And then what are the human skills and technical skills that are essential to meeting those accountabilities and achieving the purpose of the role? So this, again, might seem very simplistic. And perhaps if you, as the hiring manager, went and did this canvas on your own, you might find it comes together rather easily. But the idea is to use this canvas as a communication tool and do it in a workshop with your hiring team. So that can mean your cross-functional team. It can mean including any recruiters or managers or stakeholders that the role will be working very closely with, and do it together. And what you'll see is that there's going to be a lot of different answers to these questions, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth, and there's going to be a lot of juicy conversations. And at the end of that session, what you should come out with is a greater alignment on what you're actually looking for. And getting that alignment before you start interviewing is just essential. It saves you time, it saves your team time, and it saves the people that are coming into interview time as well. The canvas is something you can find on my website at kateleto.com if you'd like to download it and you use it for a virtual workshop as well. It's pretty easy to do. So that's the first thing that you can do to integrate hiring for human skills into your processes. The second thing is to prepare some meaningful questions to help you understand that in the human skills section of this role canvas, that you're actually finding people that meet those skill needs. So I remember when I was doing a lot of interviewing at Moo, at Yahoo, and at other places, 5 minutes before the interview, I would often, again, go online and I would do a Google search for those brain teaser questions that Google or Amazon or somebody would ask candidates. And I'd usually find something like this. What do you think has more advertising potential in Boston, a flower shop or a funeral home? Or design an evacuation plan for the building? And well, I felt really smug asking these questions of the candidate because I felt pretty smart. Really, I began to realize the only thing I was getting out of it is seeing how comfortable they are in ambiguity. Not much more. So instead of asking these brain teaser questions, what I encourage is to ask behavioral-based interview questions. And these questions are very simplistic. They're not meant to trick. They're not meant to frighten people. They're just meant to give you an opportunity to learn how somebody may have behaved in a work situation in the past, to give you a glimpse at how they may behave in a work situation in the future. Now, one thing we have to keep in mind in asking these questions is that people do change. We have that ability, which is great. But that means that the story that you hear in response to a behavior-based interview question like this one is something that may not reflect their current attitudes, their current behaviors, and how they might handle a situation differently. So that's where it's up to you to probe and to find out more. But for example, a behavior-based interview question around conflict resolution. So let's say on your role canvas, you identify conflict resolution as one of the primary skills that this role really needs. Let's say your team's had a lot of conflict lately, and you'd like to find somebody that's comfortable with conflict and can maybe help you step out of it in a really positive direction. So you could ask them something like, tell me about a time when you suggested something that someone disagreed with. What did you say? How did you handle the situation? Again, very basic question, right? Not meant to trick, not meant to scare. Another option would be, have you ever encountered someone at work who was unreasonable? What did you say? And again, the onus in asking behavior-based interview questions is on you, the interviewer, right? To actually listen to the narrative that your candidate is sharing with you and use those interview skills and probe and nudge until you can make something as intangible as conflict resolution tangible. You know, find out how they do engage with conflict, if they do. If it's something that they're comfortable engaging with, how do they set it up? Do they set it up so that there's a winner, or that everybody's a winner, or that perhaps there's a winner and a loser in a situation? And what would actually work best within your team, within your organization, to help create the change that you need and the change that you're searching for? So I've just talked about two questions around conflict resolution when it comes as examples for behavior-based questions. There's a book that I always recommend if you're interested in behavior-based questioning, and it's called The EQ Interview. And the author goes through all these great emotional intelligence competencies, talks about why they're important, that people within a discipline might need that competency, and how to interview for it, what kind of behavior-based questions to ask. So I highly recommend this book. The third thing that you could do to start to integrate hiring for human skills into your hiring process is reflect and respond. So when I work with organizations on hiring, I often start by asking them to draw out their hiring process. And I usually see something like this. It starts with the job description and it ends with the offer. And it's as you see, it's linear. And my response is always, when was the last time that you did anything in product where it was a linear process? And I usually get some blank stares as a response to that, because it doesn't happen, right? The work that we do is not linear. The hiring process shouldn't be either. So instead of thinking about starting with the job offer or the job description and ending with the offer, think about how you can build in points to continuously learn through your hiring process. In my book, I talk about an idea of a calibration meeting and having that on a regular basis with your hiring teams. It's kind of like a retrospective. Bringing everyone together who's involved in the hiring and the interviewing to touch base on what they've learned. How are the interviews going? How are the questions going? What are they hearing back? Are they actually meeting people that reflect the role itself that you're searching for? Maybe you've learned that the role itself has changed and you need to pivot and iterate based on that. The whole idea is to build in these moments of reflection and retrospection with the entire team. Also, to do something that I call a role retro, which is even after you hire someone, one of the first things you do is to put this retrospective on your calendar, probably 3-6 months after that person has joined. And you have a retro with all the members of the hiring team, with the person that you hired, and you come together and you look at the role. And you kind of say, how did we do? Did we get this role right? What did we miss? Person who came in and took the job and are now living this role, is this really what you're doing? And the idea behind a role retro is not to have a personal development kind of feedback session. It's not whether or not the candidate or the new joiner is doing a great job. It's how did you do with thinking about the role? How did you do with hiring? So give yourself that space even after the person has joined the organization. The idea of a role retro comes from Jack Welch, who was CEO at GE, of course. And he was very passionate about helping his organization make really good hiring decisions, because making bad ones, as we've seen, can be really costly. He introduced a metric called a hiring batting average, actually, kind of based on America's baseball's batting average. But the idea was, before a hiring decision was made, he'd go to every member of the hiring team and ask what their feelings were, what they thought, and whether or not to proceed with the hire. And then a year afterwards, he would go back and say, like, how did we do? Was this the right decision? And they actually built a metric out of that. I don't know if we have to go that far, but I do love the idea of finding small ways that we can actually focus ourselves and our teams to gear towards and lean towards making informed, broad-based, really, really considered and meaningful hiring decisions. So just to recap, instead of actually thinking about hiring in this linear process, I think what we need to start thinking about hiring in our product world as more of kind of a learning loop, one that's based on the ability to build a role that matters and not just do a job descriptions with must-haves and nice-to-haves, to actually evaluate for human skills in interviews through behavior-based interview questions, and to build in some opportunities to reflect and respond along the way. But one last thing, if you are interested in actually hiring for and finding people with human skills, you have to have it yourself, right? It's one of those things that you can't see it unless you have it. So it's something that with hiring, I feel like can actually be a real opportunity for self-development, for team development, and organization-wide development. In many ways, hiring itself is an agent of change, an agent of growth. We just have to give ourselves a chance to think of it that way and approach it that way. I'm offering 2 different ways to start to do this and kind of build your own hiring, build your own human skills, and build your different components and capacity within. So I'm offering a summer leadership coaching program if you're interested in that. You can find out more on my website, as well as a Leading with Empathy masterclass that I just announced yesterday. You can ping me on Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it may be if you'd like more information, or just go to my website. Otherwise, pick up the book. Marty Kagan said nice things. Martin Erickson has said nice things. So I hope you guys will have a chance to check it out. Thank you very much.